Cheese is the most stolen food all around the globe.
Cheese, I would think it'd be bread. Has a lot more dough.
It's that dough, girl. No, but it's that cheddar.
But it's the dough with the cheddar.
Welcome back to Oh for Food's Sake. I am one of your hosts, Janice Domingo.
And I'm your second host, Jamie and DaSilva.
And today we're going to be talking a little bit about ourselves because we're narcissists deep down inside. I'm kidding. No, we're not.
Truly.
We haven't been evaluated as narcissists.
Yeah, it's not clinical, but it might be possible.
It's possible.
We won't rule everything out.
Yes, we won't. But yeah, no, today we are going to be talking a little bit about ourselves, particularly Portuguese food. So Jamie is our expert on things Portuguese. I'm just putting you
Expert.
on the spot there.
Yeah, put on the spot. Expert. All right. Do I get a pay raise?
For anybody that doesn't know, Jamie is half Portuguese, or half Portuguese, correct?
Yes. Half Portuguese, and my dad's parents, or his father rather, came over from the islands of Portugal. So unfortunately, he wasn't raised directly with having the language spoken in the house because they wanted to be more Americanized and stripped down. So the unfortunate part was in his home, there wasn't a ton of traditional Portuguese food that was cooked unless he went to his grandmother's. But even then, he wasn't the biggest fan of it. And then they weren't really allowed to speak the language in my father's house. So he didn't get to learn that beautiful language that I kind of picked up on when I lived in Portugal for a while. And that was an unfortunate part on that end. But they have some delicious food, and all my travels through Portugal was delicious and eye-opening that they like a lot of fish and different types of clams and shrimps and locally sourced stuff. A lot of stuff isn't in mass production, and when they don't have the said food or item or vegetable, that's just kind of how that goes. They don't try to outsource it to meet the demands like we do here.
So that's kind of one of the main reasons why I actually wanted to have this conversation and have this conversation with you of all people. So for those of you that don't know, I recently just received my master's from... put in an air horn there, or it's an air horn.
Yeah, she did it. She just walked across that stage, grabbed that thing.
That virtual stage.
Virtual stage. But I mean, you did the damn thing. And I feel like the 2 years was really fast. I know
it went by very quickly.
Okay, because it seemed that way.
But it was a difficult 2 years. I told a friend.
Is bomb.
Thank you. But my thesis is kind of one of the main reasons that I wanted to have this conversation. Again, my thesis was the explanation of food and food production from different cultures that could have possibly stemmed from colonialization. Not that I know specifically about Portuguese culture because I didn't do the research on Portuguese culture. But I wanted somebody, with a Portuguese background to talk about their culture's heritage and their culture's dishes, because I feel like there isn't a space really in media, in mainstream media, that allows various cultures to put their specific history at the forefront.
Also having cuisines that have an umbrella that is very much Americanized dishes that people in America think that is a normal dish or a traditional dish in those said cuisines, when actually it's not. In actuality, it's more Americanized and stripped down, unfortunately. Or, but like you said, the spotlight on things, because there's a lot of different, the one great thing about the Bay Area, including San Jose, the melting pot of food is incredible, and you can find any type of food, really, from Ethiopian to incredible Filipino food, Brazilian food, Cambodian food, all over. And that's a special thing that we have here in the Bay Area, because you could really find anything that you have a hankering for, you'll find it here. Which in a lot of places in the United States, we don't have that access to it. And the only thing, though, I did see, and maybe I didn't look hard enough when I was growing up, is that I did not find Portuguese restaurants. Now in San Jose, they do. They actually have quite a few, but in the East Bay, I never went to any or found any. There were restaurants that were not of Portuguese cuisine, but were a ton of Portuguese uh, attendees, if you will. That there was a lot of patrons that were. So there was one place specifically people in the East Bay would know if they lived like in like Hayward, San Lorenzo, San Leandro, a place called Bancheros, and it was Italian, but a lot of people that came through there were Portuguese, big Portuguese families.
So, Jamie, where exactly is Portugal in Europe in relation to all the other countries that surround it?
It's right on the outside, the little nub before you get into like deep Europe. It's right in that little eastern coastal situation, and it's like directly across New York.
So you can see New York from your kitchen.
It's like Sarah Palin. It's the restaurant from my house. Yeah, you can't actually see it for the viewers at home. That's a joke, y'all. But it's right
for
on
you
the water.
Flat earthers, you can.
Do we still have a lot of flat earthers? We may. But there's a place called Cabo da Roca that you can see, and you can take a tour there, and the lighthouse, and it's one of those beautiful scenes off the coast.
And you spent some time in Portugal.
I did. I lived in Lisbon, the capital, for about 4 months. And it was beautiful and stunning, and the food was awesome, but a ton of fish. So I had codfish, but the bacalhau that they have there a lot, and there's many different ways you can make it. A lot of steak at the baifa. Frango is chicken. A lot of clams, razor clams, shrimps. So you have the rose shrimp, the Mozambique shrimp, and I had no idea there's all these different type of shrimps. But
okay, so tell me a little bit about the bacalhau, because that's a pretty big
It's a pretty standard
culture, right?
Yes, it is. It's pretty standard, and I wouldn't say that the flavor palette is so excessive in aromatics. It's very much like onion, garlic, parsley, lemon, and then salt and pepper. It's pretty basic in some ways, unless you have like a white wine sauce. The bacalhau is a codfish, and so you can have it usually it's steamed, and then it has some steamed spinach, and then it's over some potatoes. Some people bake it or crust it with like a type of crust, and then bake it or saute it or steam it, poach it. No matter, there's a ton of different ways. You can have potatoes, vegetables. I don't think they have sauces with it, not that I remember, but like lemons, you squeeze some lemon on top of it. I ate a lot of whole fish as well. I was there. I got really used to eating potatoes and fish and vegetables, whether it was codfish. They would give you like the fillets versus like a whole fish. So a lot of places you'll go, especially in the beach towns, where they will bring out fresh whole fish for you to choose, which in the United States, I don't know of anyone that you can actually go and pick out your own fish that they will then cook and then bring to you. So I really love that aspect when we went.
I think they do that in some Chinese restaurants.
Like, I think it's amazing. And I am that weird girl. First of all, I am that girl that you dare me to do something and I will probably do it. And eating the eyeball, that's one for the books.
Eating the eyeball
of the fish.
Interesting. Okay. And is that cultural? Is that something?
No, that's just me trying new stuff. They were also really big on octopus. Now, I do like octopus. I don't like eating it in big chunks, though. I like it thinly sliced, sauteed in garlic and olive oil. If it's too big, it's too rubbery for me, and the tentacles freak me out. So a lot is octopus. And I think the first time I went with my sister, the year and a half before I moved there, I went with my sister and she ended up getting squid ink risotto, and they had big chunks of octopus.
I've wanted to try that. So squid ink risotto and squid ink pasta. Yes.
The squid ink pasta is really, really good. Not that it's a cultural thing over there, but there's some places here in the Bay that you can go and have. But unfortunately for her, she's not squid ink makes her want to throw up. So we had to, I ended up eating it, but a lot of octopus in it. So the bacalhau is traditional. However, it's different over here because I don't remember my father or his father really saying that they had that here, the bacalhau, but they had stuff that's like more pica-pau, which is pickles and beef is a big thing. Pickling in general is kind of a big thing too, but I didn't taste that there in all the regions that I went to, which I was in Lisbon. I went down to Albufeira. I went to Porto. Sebentipol, like there's a bunch of different places that I went to and I never really found that to be. So I don't know if that's a mixture of old school to now and then being in America. But onion garlic is a must for a lot of things.
And okay, so let's go back to the pickled thing, because that's not the only preserve thing that they do there. I know in the conversation we had prior to this also, you were saying, you know, a lot of the things are fresh, but Portugal is known for their sardines also.
Oh, the sardines. So the sardines, yes. So they actually had, the first time I ever went there, I stepped into this beautiful shop downtown Lisbon, and it was all this powder blue color, and it looked like a Tiffany blue. And so I'm thinking like, oh, this must be a really nice like jewelry place to find like a souvenir. No, it was just stacked with cans of sardines. So it's a touristy thing where you go pick a can and it has like, you know, kind of like the keychains have your names on it. We can get your names printed on it. You get this blue can, you can print your name on it and take it with you and take it home. A lot of them will eat with like bread and canned sardines, but a lot of there's a big festival that happens right about this time. I think it's St. Anthony's.
Yeah, it is the Santo Antonio Festival.
Yeah, so it's going to hit on the June 12th, and that's a really great festival. It goes on for like a whole week, I want to say, that you just party. And sardines is right when it starts for their festival, so the whole summer is roasted, salted sardines on the grill. You can find it kind of like at little pop-ups when you're walking around the city. Is like little, you know, like little, what you would find here, like little taquerias. You know, food trucks, you'd find that there with sardines. So it's interesting. It's a different take of eating some fish on the go. Literally take it, eat it, but it's really, really yummy if you're into that kind of thing.
Well, it makes sense for Portugal culture because or Portugal, just because it's, you know, its relation its location in relation to like the Atlantic, because Atlantic cod, or Atlantic cod is bacalao. That's what that is, right?
And it's literally right there. And the Tagus
sardines,
River, so the Tagus River just runs right through the city, right there. So it's really accessible, and they love it, and it's delicious, and especially when it's salted and charred, really good. They can like they use bread or like crackers that you can eat that with if you'd like. That was really, really, really good. But
okay, be honest. So have you, prior to going to Portugal and having sardines, have you ever had sardines like?
No, I only remember sardines like in jars, right? Like small fish jars, right? I think I'm thinking of anchovies. But no,
anchovies. Well, because Filipinos, we love sardines. I mean, at least in my family, there's a very specific brand of sardine, and it's called Ligo, and it is marinated. It's sardines in a can, and it in a tomato-based sauce.
Ooh.
Yeah, and what I used to do, or hell, I still do it. I'm not even gonna lie. Yeah, and something my dad taught me to do is you just get, you know, open you up a can of these tomato-based marinated whatever sardines, pour a little vinegar in there, swirl it around, and then mix it in, and then that's how you eat it. You just heat it up and you eat it like that with some rice, and to me it's delicious. It's flavorful, it's tangy. It has a very sardine taste. But I'm okay with that. Like, you know, Filipinos, we're used to eating a lot of food that has been preserved. In a lot of, you know, natural forms of preservation. So I'm cool with that. But like, that's
Did you
why
ever have like a lot of like fresh sardines? Was that something that you guys ever had a lot?
For me, I don't know if I had growing up. I mean, I probably had, my parents probably snuck it into my food and without telling me. Maybe. But yeah, that's why I have to ask. I'm like, did you ever eat sardines growing up prior to going to Portugal and realizing it or experiencing it?
Ever. And in one of the classes I took a bunch of different classes: cooking, baking, sailing, art, whatever. I ended up taking like a tile class and making anjuelos, and I actually drew a sardine. Like one of the ones that I made was a sardine that I drew and painted.
What is it?
It's the tiles that they have like on the building. So I took like an art class that you can paint and have those fired off, and then you take them home with you. And I made the pattern of the sardines, which is a common pattern that you'll see within the tiles on the buildings.
Okay, and what did you say it was called? The name of it? The
Enjuelos is the tiles.
Okay.
If I'm
Okay.
saying that correctly, don't come at me in the comments. But I'm pretty sure. But it was a great class that I took a bunch of different classes, but the fish is everywhere for sure.
Next on our list, am I saying this correctly, James? Bafana?
Yes. They're really well known in little kiosks that they have around. They're like lookouts throughout the whole city, which usually like 4 o'clock is when people, kind of like here, you have happy hour, 3-4 o'clock, people get off work, they go get a cocktail, a beer. Sagres beer is amazing. And get a little sandwich, and that you'll find that all over, or a version of that somewhere in some of the small restaurants, which are called tocas, which are like small hidden restaurants, because the city, it's so hilly, so many hills. I mean, you just do your cardio just walking the city in general, but there's all these small, tiny little restaurants hidden everywhere. And a lot of them will have those for their lunch options for sure, or like a little after drink session.
Okay.
For sure. And the one beautiful thing that I really love living there, when you walk around the streets, I mean, obviously the cocktails and having fun, but there's a lot of
hot guys.
Oh, they're so delicious. I sampled. They're yummy. So yummy. Super yummy. Yes. But the fado music is still really big. So sometimes you'll pop your head into a restaurant and it is a singer singing the traditional fado music. And that's really beautiful to hear, like while you're walking through like the cobblestones and going in all these little hidden gem of restaurants. Like I remember there's one restaurant, a friend of mine sent me a location to come to hang out with some friends, and the guy couldn't find it. It was if I translated the name of the street, it was called The Little Princess, I want to say. And you could barely even make a car go up it. Like it was so hidden, and you had to like get out and then walk extra to go up. Like it was so like in the middle of nowhere in the city, like in the hills. And it had some of the most delicious charcuterie boards ever. And then it went dancing all night. So it was great.
So I'm going to go ahead and ask you about one last food item, just because I filmed you doing it and I loved watching you make this, is the Pastel de Nada.
Yes, the pastel de nada is one of the most classic dishes or desserts you will find. Usually it's drank with a cherry liqueur called ginger to enjoy, and it is the Tara by Lem is the one who makes majority of them and distributes them. However, it was brought on, I think, in the late 1800s at a monastery nearby that they were about to close down. And I think that they need to make a revenue to keep it open. So they end up making these pastel de nadas, which are like a cheese egg tart. And the dough is so thin. So when you go in, I end up taking a class at a bakery, and he showed us how to do it. And he's like 3 generations of making this. And the dough is so thin on the tin. They're like little pies. And like to the point where like you think it's almost translucent. You keep working with your thumb. It has to be that thin to be that crispy. So it's a great little dish. What I really love about the Portuguese desserts traditionally, they're not overly sweet. One of my other favorite desserts that they have is a rice pudding there. It's more of a cinnamon orange that they have in the rice and pudding, and I had that a lot while I was out there.
And did you already tell us the story about how the Pastel de Nada came to be?
Yes. So the monasteries, but I also think because they had an excess of eggs that they ended up making the tarts and then end up realizing they could sell it. And then I think they gave the recipe to whomever owns.
Oh, it was the monks. So the monks.
Yeah, it was the monks.
They used the egg whites as starch.
Oh, that's right. They used the egg whites as starch.
That's what it was. Yeah, I was like, I remember there was a whole story behind it, and it was
so they had
to use
the yolks and end up making these desserts and then selling the recipe to whomever it is at the Tower by Lem who. Well, the Tower by Lem that's not where they make it. It's just that's a landmark, but it is a building right next to it. So, by Lem is where they make and produce most of them. Now the bakeries all over Lisbon do have a variance of it, but it's kind of like here, every bakery is different. And everyone will kind of claim like in Newark is like the best Newark cup of coffee. That's kind of how it is there in some. So some of them will give you their recipes. The one that I have, I will tell you from what I know from the traditional one, it has changed. It is not traditional, the ones that I've made.
Okay.
but I end up looking up what that is to make it traditional. So, but also you can make it all just different types of way. If you want more orange in it or more lemon or whatever, that's a whole other situation.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, thanks, Jamie, for giving us a little peek into your culture, especially your culture's cuisine. And this is going to be something that we're going to be doing at least once a month here at Oh for Food's Sake is, sharing a little bit of culture, various cultures that we're probably not used to hearing about or used to, seeing or eating and encountering, because me and Jamie are very adventurous with food and we like hearing things about food and knowing new things about food, especially history, again, which is one of the cool things that I loved hearing about Jamie explain to me the history behind the Pastel de Nada.
It was a trip being there, as a trip tasting it all and seeing it and taking it in. And I think what I really like the most is that they don't really overly supply because of the demand. If there's the fish isn't in, the fruit isn't in, the vegetable isn't in, then you don't get it. And no one's storming out because they don't get, they don't have the cod or the lint or the salmon they need for their diet and X, Y, and Z. It's not really like that.
Yeah. So really I mean, again, that's the kind of, the honeypot version of things we probably won't ever know because, some of us have never been to Portugal before. Yes. And, again, there's certain things about, specific cultures that we out here, especially, in the West don't know because one, we don't tend to do research unless we have to. And again, because I did my entire thesis on food production. Mm-hmm. Yeah, production and colonization. This interested me that much more to know more about cultures and their cultural dishes, and I just find it so fascinating. Which is why, yeah.
And yeah, there's not a lot of restaurants here or places you can buy stuff, but there are places you can buy like the certain type of breads, pastries, and linguiça. But linguiça, when I was there, I didn't notice any linguiça there. And I grew up on linguiça here, which is a Portuguese spiced pork sausage. That is not, I didn't have linguiça there at all.
So I only know.
So my whole life thinking like that's a Portuguese thing. I mean, it is, but it was not prevalent in Portugal at all.
Because I know in Hawaii, there's there are a lot of Portuguese people in Hawaii.
There are.
That was where I first had linguiça also. So I just assumed, again, and I didn't know this because I didn't know and I was uneducated and didn't do any research and I was really young. So I'm like, oh, okay, I guess this is a Portuguese thing. But yeah, like after finding out from you, it's like, no, it is, but it isn't.
Right. It is, but it isn't. It has a name, especially the type that we always bought with Silva's. And my last name is Silva. So I think there was more of a tie to that. Even though we're at DaSilva, but half of my family is a Silva and the other half is DaSilva. So there's also a thing with that they try to Americanize our last name. So to make it sound more Americanized. So the DA came from there versus we're just technically a Silva. So when I was in Portugal, Silva and DaSilva are all over the city. So I would give them my card or tell them what my last name was, and they would just immediately go into speaking Portuguese with me. And I was not fluent in that way. But they say that you have a little rib is what they say. Oh, you're Portuguese. You have a little rib in you, you American girl. Cute. But then also realizing the migration also too with the islands where my grandparents came from too, is a big fisherman community. So a lot of them didn't have a lot of jobs, which still is that way kind of today. A lot of people leave the islands and then come to the big city for jobs.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie, for sharing a little bit of your culture with us. And like I was saying earlier, we're going to try to do this. My pleasure hearing it. I love hearing stuff like this.
I wish I could take everyone in a backpack and go travel.
Put everybody in your back pocket.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, you can put me in your stowaway because I'm short enough. Carry on luggage is Janice. But this is going to be something that we're going to be planning on doing at least once a month, is discussing different cultures, people's cuisines from other cultures that we're probably not used to hearing about, or thinking something is indigenous to a person's culture, or a certain dish is indigenous to a person's culture, but it's actually not. And hearing the history behind it. I'm a history buff. I like learning. I like knowing and hearing about that kind of stuff, and I hope you guys do too. We're essentially doing this as a to pacify Janice and her her love of history.
Her love of history and
her
to
love of
pacify our
food.
our taste buds
Exactly.
that we love so much.
So again, this will be, and feel free to drop us a comment, an email, info.oforfoodsake@gmail.com if there's any specific culture you want to hear about.
Yes,
and
please.
Yeah,
Come
please.
Send us some notes.
Send us
hey
some
girl,
notes.
let's be friends.
So yeah, follow us on our Instagram or our TikToks, because we have a TikTok, Jamie.
We old, but we got one.
And the handles for both of those are OH_FOR_.
You got it.
FOODS.
You just got your master's.
_ I can't spell.
SAKE. It's a lot of underscores. We get it, but that's what happened. And please like and share, and also let us know if there's any type of food that make you say, "Oh, for food's sake." We would love to know.
Yeah, please do share your food stories with us. We love hearing it. If you want to forward it to us when we can post about it, we can.
Or invite us to dinner.
Yeah,
don't be rude. Invite us. We'll bring wine.
Tea. Bring the tea, and we'll bring the tea.
We'll bring the tea.
But thanks again for joining us on Oh for Food's Sake, and please join us again next time.
Bye.
Bye.